And we are live. Hello, world. Welcome to the Champions Coffee Podcast, where every week we have coffee with an education professional who is out there on the front lines championing students to be all they can be. I'm your host, Ben Hallett, and I am the co-founder and CEO of Vygo. And Vygo, if you don't know, is a student support platform that helps educators connect their students to their mentors, their tutors, their advisors, and counselors, and everyone in between, all of the champions on campus. And at Vygo, we really believe in celebrating professionals who make all of these support services tick. So that's why we're doing this podcast. And today is our very first episode. And as such, I'm expecting to have a few technical difficulties. So please bear with us. And to help me iron out all the technical difficulties, I've actually invited as our first guest today my fellow co-founder at Vygo and Vygo's Chief Operating Officer, Joel DiTrapani. Hello, Joel.
Hi, Ben. Thanks for having me today. I feel honored to be your guinea pig.
Thank you. I feel honored to have you as my guinea pig, mate. So as a bit of an intro for Joel, and Joel hasn't seen this, so this will be fun. Before Vygo, Joel had over 10 years of experience in tutoring and mentoring, and Joel's always been passionate about the education journey and championing the underdog. Now, with those passions, that led on to Joel post-university into creating Vygo and then building Vygo up from scratch to what it is today, which is, a global company working with universities and governments and education institutions all around the world, helping them launch support programs. And Joel, as someone in the student success or student support space, is quite unique in the sense that he's had to work with every different type of support program you can think of that is run. So your academic, your tutoring, your peer mentoring, your alumni, your counseling. Joel's had experience in introducing technology into all these different programs and in growing those programs, which is something that I think makes Joel quite unique and quite an interesting first guest for the podcast. So, Joel, welcome again. And is there anything else in particular you think we should add for your introduction?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. I am very much just a generalist in the company and a vast generalist in the land of student support.
Too humble, mate. Too humble. So, all right, Joel, we'll jump into our questions. Actually, just to check, this is the Champions Coffee Podcast. Do you have your beverage of choice?
I don't have a coffee today. I have a lemon and ginger tea. I'm trying to cut down on my caffeine intake, so definitely in the tea world. It looks like you've got a tea as well, though.
No, it's definitely a coffee, mate. Definitely a coffee. It's a coffee tea bag.
No, I've got lemon and ginger today.
True. Yeah, today's episode is recorded post 12 midday, so I'm not allowed to drink coffee.
I hope that's a self-imposed rule.
Yeah, it's my wife's rule. Okay, all right, let's jump into the questions, mate, and because we do only have, this is meant to be a short podcast. So question number one, what life experiences motivated you to jump into the education and in particularly the student success space?
That's a great question. I guess, first of all, I'm going to try and keep this really short because I feel like we've had these same conversations over 8 hours. So we'll try and cram it all into 15 minutes here. Really, there's been a few key events, but the primary event, and it's probably the same for you, it really happened in our first year of uni together. We were studying, had a very close friend called Tony. He was mentoring me through statistics. Coming into university, he had the highest grades, very charismatic, very confident. He actually introduced me to my wife. She's much better looking than I am, so I'm glad that he was in my life. But really, he really had the whole world at his feet. He had all of the opportunity there for him. And he was absolutely killing it with his grades. And unfortunately, outside of university, Tony had a few really hard things happen to him, which just completely reversed his priorities, where he was able to come to campus every single day. He really had to start to juggle his life. He had to put his family first. And he had to spend a lot of time away from campus. And because of that, he started to fall behind. He ended up failing one subject that semester. So that was completely fine. Failing one subject, he could bounce back from that. But he went to the university and he asked for help, and he just couldn't find the right support for him. The support that they offered was at a time he couldn't make, or in a format that he couldn't connect with. So because of that, he just couldn't get the support services that he needed. And 2 months later, he just completely dropped out of university. So one of our really close friends who had to just drop out because of, I guess, a situation that was completely outside of his control. And that really, I guess, was a strong lesson for me that someone can drop out and fall between those support cracks because they don't know where to get the help that they need. So since then, I've really been on a mission to help students get through their degree and really to scale student support. So for me, that's probably the main driver. I could go on for maybe another 30 to 1,000 minutes on this.
No, I 100%. Yeah, that was quite a compelling story to get started in this space, and I guess thinking about, well, what are the barriers between students and support? The known barriers, but what are the unknown barriers? And I think we've probably both learned that those barriers, they change over time with different cohorts, with different types of students, mature age, undergraduate, and how can we and our partners and technology and training break down as much of those barriers as possible to support?
Yeah.
All right.
100%.
Nice answer, mate. So moving on to the next question. What student support services are you currently involved with, across the board, across all the partners and universities that you work with?
That is a huge question. I think it really goes back to what you said at the start, is that I really am a generalist for all support services. So we have everything from class-specific academic support to mental health, to industry connection, to student advisors, to staff advisors. Just really, my whole goal is connecting a student to the support service. I don't have great expertise in what the support service should be for that student, but I make that connection happen when they need it, how they need it, where they need it. So I really have, I guess, a huge array of experience in different support services at that general level.
Well, I guess then probably a better question then for someone like yourself would be, what support service are you actually most passionate about at the moment?
I love peer support. So I truly believe the best way to scale student support to every student is to empower the student community to help itself. So there are amazing support services offered by staff, but the staff to student ratio just doesn't make it possible for every student to get that tailored support service that they need. So one of my fundamental beliefs is that if we're going to support all students, we have to do that by allowing students to help one another. So any peer support program, whether that's academic support or just even welcome to the university and here's how to get around, I think that's the best way we can help students. And that's where my biggest passion is.
Yeah, great. And I guess, well, this flows on well then. In a peer program, what does success look like for you? Like what makes you think that you've helped an institution run a successful peer mentoring or peer academic advisory program?
That's a really good question. It can be fairly loaded, but when I first started working with Griffith University, I was working with a lady named Shana, and she said to me, I don't care what we do this semester, because if we help one student, all of this is worth it to me. And that's really resonated with me and stuck with me since then, that we are really impacting students' lives. It's not just a cursory hello, like we're making real change in the way a student is going to live their life. And it's not just about passing one class, it's potentially about staying in university, achieving those life outcomes that they're really driving for. So although we're seeing that we're helping students all around Australia and all around the world, for me, where I really get my motivation is hearing those stories come through our platform where we did make something possible that wasn't possible before, that we were able to make someone's life better and to change their life. So for me, it's that personal reflection that students share with us, that we've made something possible for them.
Yeah, I think you've hit on a key point. I think when it comes to measuring success, you know, we can often overlook the data that's required, and how are we going to measure success here? How are we going to capture the stories? Because you're right, you need evidence that you are, not just people are meeting up, not just that people are having sessions or things like that. You need evidence that these are actually having meaningful impacts on that person's life, and I guess against whatever the objective of the program might be. A peer mentoring program might be in the LGBTIQ space, and it might be about feeling like that they belong on campus. Or it could be the international space where they feel like they belong to the country that they're studying in. But the only way to get some of those things is to, I guess, have the framework in place to be picking up those stories at scale.
Yeah, 100%. And every program, every support offering is completely different as to what success is, both quantitatively but also qualitatively.
Yeah, and I guess in that, everybody should be thinking about the success of that particular program benchmarked on other programs that are like for like, mature age student mentoring for mature age student mentoring, because those ones are going to have different quantitative measures.
Yeah, exactly. Like for like, I definitely think we can get quantitative results to define success.
Great. Okay. All right. Moving along, we've got 4 or 5 minutes left. All right. Can you tell us, you've just mentioned about the stories that, at the end of the day, you'll be satisfied if you help one student that day. What are some of the stories that you've been proud to be involved in?
Oh, that is a great question. There's so many stories that jump to mind. I guess one that I absolutely love is we had a student absolutely killing it with her studies. She was doing really well, like acing her initial assignments, never really considered reaching out to get peer support. But then sort of life threw her a curveball, and she ended up very sick and ended up in hospital. So that really made accessing on-campus support impossible. And she started to fall behind, started to really struggle. And she actually reached out to a lecturer and said, I'm struggling. I don't know what to do. I can't make lectures. I can't make tutorials. And the lecturer just didn't know how to help them. And they just said, look, I'm really sorry, but there's nothing I can do. The university doesn't have any framework in place for this. But luckily, the student actually stumbled across us. We'd actually launched a really big peer support network for that university. And she was able to connect with someone who'd done that exact class and was able to coach her through that. So from a hospital bed, she was getting online video support, even though she'd reached out to the university, they didn't really know how to help her. And she ended up passing that class. So she went from having like some really tough life situations thrown at her to still being able to get through because she could access asynchronous and borderless support. It just didn't matter what was existing.
Yeah, that's nice. Okay. Great story, mate. Okay, so this will be interesting, actually, because of the announcement we made quite recently. What is the 3-year vision for your work? And, where is Vygo going? Where is the programs that you work with, where are they going?
That is a very good question. Almost seems pre-prepared by you. In the next 3 years, we will champion 1 million students all around the world. We want to borderlessly connect students to the help that they need. So 3 years just looks like making that happen. And it's a massive goal, which is bigger than me. It's bigger than Vygo. It's bigger than any individual institution. It's almost bigger than all of the students in Australia. So we need people to come along that journey with us. So my part in that is getting everyone that we work with and that we don't work with to believe in this vision with us, to really put students first and to make sure we can make this generation of students better. So yeah, championing 1 million students in the next 3 years. And if you want more information, check out Ben's video.
Yeah, so for more context on that, we made an announcement this week in the wake of COVID and in the wake of everything that's going on. I'm sorry to say the C word. I didn't mean to say that. But you know, this year has been a tough year for students. No one's doubting that, and certainly we firmly believe that if a big response to this year isn't made by institutions and educators and by EdTech and everybody collectively to champion these students, then this year's cohort and everybody who's studying right now are really going to be disadvantaged in the workforce and in the future lives, and that will ripple on. So this week we decided to make a public pledge that before this year's cohort graduates, we will champion 1 million of them. And so yeah, we posted some information on that, and please check it out on LinkedIn or on our website, or just reach out directly to us on that one.
Great answer, Ben.
Sorry to re-answer. All right, mate. So this is a good one. What is a common misconception that you hear in the student support or student success space?
I love this question. I love this question so much. So essentially, there's one misconception that I feel like goes around all of the time. And it's that you have to really force students to help one another. What people don't understand is that students are the most giving and supportive demographic in the entire country, and my guess is in the entire world. So every student really wants to give back and to help one another. So you don't need to pay students to get them to support one another. Every student wants to help one another. They're willing to give so much of their time, and so much more than you can even imagine. We see students on our platform helping each other sometimes for 10 hours in a weekend, and they don't want anything in return. And it's because they love that feeling of giving, but it also starts to develop their own skills, their communication skills. We had this one story where the student was giving so much of his time, and we reached out to him and asked him why he was giving so much of his time. And he said it was to help him get over the anxiety of meeting new people at university. So not only was he making 10 or 20 students' academic life better, he was making his own life better by giving time. So I don't think enough people give students enough credit for how much they're actually willing to support one another.
True. Makes me think of that there was that one girl from QUT in the peer mentor academic mentoring program we were running there, and I remember one of her feedback was she said, I'm loving this. I now have friends on campus. There's 5 people that I can wave to on campus when I walk in every day. And she was a mentor, she was a leader, but she didn't have an established friend group, and through mentoring others, university became that little bit more friendly for her to attend.
I love that connection.
All right, we have run 3 minutes over the time. I'm going to hit you with one final question. I want you to give me a 1 max 2 sentence reply.
Okay.
What advice or encouragement would you give a student about to begin their journey at university?
All right. When first starting university, make friends who are smarter than you. So surround yourself with people who are going to challenge you to become a better version of yourself.
Is that how you met me?
I learned that after meeting you in university, that I really should step up the grade of my friendship circle.
Thanks, mate. Well, on that positive note, so we've come to the end of the podcast. We need to wrap up. So Joel, thanks so much for having coffee with us, with me today, and sharing your stories, your advice, your visions. And this has been episode 1 of the Champions Coffee podcast. Thank you all for listening and checking it out. If you'd like to stay updated on the next episode, please go to LinkedIn, search Vygo, and click follow. We'll be posting all of the information about who's speaking, who's being interviewed, and all the previous sessions on there. So thank you all for listening. Thank you, Joel.
I'll be sure to follow.
Thanks, mate. All right.